Offering English learners the opportunity to interact with one another not only provides them an opportunity to practice using academic English, but it also lets them express themselves in a different way than just simply always writing answers. So what I'm going to talk about is the importance of the expert stay stray process. And this is one of Kagan's cooperative learning structures. The teacher will select a topic for the students. In the case that I'm going to illustrate is pollution is the topic. You would have each group of students work on a different aspect of the topic. So the important part of this is to explain the procedures to students and then model. It also really helps to have the steps written for students to see, because if they've gone through the first step of the process and then they forget what you told them or even what they saw, it's written for them to see. So in the way that I'm going to show it, again, there are many variations, but the way I'm going to show it is that you put students in groups of 3. And then each student is going to work, the groups of 3 will work in small group, and of course these can be larger groups. So they will work in their small group on the assignment. So for example, the topic is pollution, and each group will get a different aspect of pollution. So maybe one group will talk about air pollution, the causes and how that can be reduced. Another group will talk about water pollution, land pollution, noise pollution. So each is going to investigate, learn about a different aspect of the topic. And then the teacher will give a question to guide them, of course, something like what are some causes of pollution and how can it be reduced? So they're going to work on that in their group. There are working groups, and the topic, of course, pollution. Each shape represents a different group, and that's important because as they move around, you'll see why I have them in different shapes for the purposes of illustration. The black mark represents a chart paper, a post-it paper, something. So the first thing they do after they have been given some time to investigate the topic, come up with the answer to the question, then they number off 1, 2, and 3. Each student in the group numbers off. Then the first change is that student number 1 becomes the expert. So student number 1, who was studying land pollution, that first group, he stays at the chart paper to teach the others that come. Students from another group move over, students 2 and 3 move over to his group, and the same thing happens clockwise around the rooms. Now, student number 1 from each group is going to talk about their particular aspect of pollution. So the one group is going to be student number 1 will be talking about water pollution. What are the causes? How to reduce water pollution? Student number 1 that's talking about air pollution will be telling the other students from the other group about it. So they're hearing about that aspect of pollution for the first time. Now they need to pay very close attention because they are going to become the next expert. So as you see in the next structure, again, people rotate around clockwise, but in this case, student number 2 stays behind and now is the expert on air pollution, whereas that student was actually in the land pollution originally. So this particular expert stay stray is very motivating for students because they know they have to be the expert. They'll take their turn of being the teacher or the expert. So they have to not only listen carefully to the presentation of the student who is the expert that time, but they need to take notes. They're motivated to ask questions and so forth so that they can feel confident when it's their turn. And the process just continues until everybody has had a chance to be the teacher. Once everyone has circulated around and has had the chance to be the teacher, it's always good to have a summary activity. And that just reinforces the content and language objectives and why it is that you did this activity. We don't want students or teachers to have the idea that we do these kinds of activities just for the sake of activities, just something fun to do to get students up and moving. No, there should always be a purpose for every activity. In the end, the teacher would write labels on the board, either the whiteboard, the overhead, something. And then with the whole class, the teacher asks student volunteers to talk about each one of those subtopics of pollution, and the teacher would write those things down, or you could have the students come up and do it. But the point is that students now will take notes on each one of these areas and fill in any gaps they didn't have when they were going around to the various tables. So it really gives them a deeper understanding of the topic. And again, to differentiate for English learners, some English learners may need to have a graphic organizer or an outline to give them some structure to be able to participate in the activity itself, and particularly in the summary.